Howdy, howdy. I was just kind of sitting here spacing out and realized, oh, it's after 8 o'clock. Hang on. Oh, fun. Let's see. I've got 8 articles up tonight. All of them are, you know, definitely mentionable. I could have put up more, but, eh. Oh, man. Kind of all over the place. China and EU, UK. Of course, we can't get away from Ukraine and Israel. So it's a bit of a smorgasbord tonight. Anyway, just gonna jump right into it. Rip the night off like a band-aid. Let's see. U.S. slaps tariffs of up to 3,521% on China-linked solar imports. So this isn't just stuff from China. It includes Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Washington, I don't want to go back to war with Vietnam. That don't sound fun. I'm kidding. Washington has set tariffs of up to 3,521% on solar imports from Southeast Asia, according to information published by the U.S. Department of Commerce on Monday. The hikes follow allegations that Chinese-owned manufacturers operating in the region had violated trade rules. The tariffs target imports from Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam, countries that collectively supplied over $12.9 billion in solar equipment to the U.S. last year, according to Bloomberg. Oops. Known as anti-dumping and countervailing, duties, the measures aim to counteract the impact of what the U.S. Commerce Department deems to be unfair subsidies and pricing practices. The decision was made following a petition lodged by the American Alliance for Solar Manufacturing Trade Committee, which represents several U.S.-based manufacturers. The domestic firms allege that Chinese solar manufacturers operating factories in the 4 Southeast Asian countries exported panels at prices lower than production costs and benefited from unfair subsidies that undermined the competitiveness of American products. Damn, that's a mouthful. 1 second. Says here the penalties vary by company and country. Jinko Solar's products from Malaysia face combined dumping and countervailing duties of 41.56%. Trina Solar's Thai-made goods are subject to 375.19%. And Cambodian suppliers who did not cooperate with the probe face punitive levies of up to 3,521%. That's a little bit of a tariff. Critics of the measure, such as the Solar Energy Industries Association, no kidding, yeah, I'm pretty sure I understand why they would be against it, argued that the tariffs would hurt U.S. solar manufacturers by increasing the cost of imported cells, which American factories use to assemble panels, Reuters noted. Right. I had a guy here locally, somewhere from around here. I posted actually an image of this in our little local group. And, he's involved in the solar industry, so he put his little spiel, whatever. But then he put buy USA made, or something to that effect. And I'm all about that. I won't argue that. But we're getting our cells from China. So without that product coming in, the solar cells, what are we going to be putting in these panels? It's not really hard to assemble solar panels. I was working on doing it myself and never did. This is way back when solar was super, super expensive. I bought a bunch of, they were just solar cells, and I was going to buy tempered glass and epoxy and make my own panels because it's really not a big deal. But then, you know, at least up until now, the price of solar panels have gotten pretty cheap. So I wished I had more, but I'm damn sure glad what I have. That's a fact. I don't have a ton, but 400 watts ought to do good with that Delta 1300. And, you know, I've got a couple more 60-watt panels for the River 600, so I'm covered on that for absolute bare minimum needs. And that's cycling the fridge once every 4 hours or so to make sure stuff stays cool. Oh, man. Says the International Trade Commission, an independent, nonpartisan U.S. federal agency that investigates trade-related matters, is set to vote in June to determine whether domestic industry was materially harmed by the imports, a necessary step for the tariffs to take full effect. After similar duties were imposed on solar imports from China roughly 12 years ago, Chinese firms responded by setting up operations in other nations that weren't affected by the tariffs, noted Bloomberg. Hence, you know, Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand. Just saying. Let's see. I'm not saying that it was the Chinese, but it was the Chinese. Let's see. The new levies will come on top of the broad tariffs introduced by the U.S. President Donald Trump, which have jolted global markets. So far, Trump has imposed tariffs of 145% on Chinese imports and threatened a further possible hike to 245%. China has accused the U.S. of bullying, retaliated with a 125% tax on U.S. products, and vowed to fight to the end. I made it sound as dramatic as I could. We do need to watch this stuff. No doubt about that. Because this trade war could go into another type of war pretty easily, to be honest. I mean, they're doing some pretty drastic things back and forth. U.S. is pissing off China by having drills with the Philippines. I mean, that is what it is. We're hanging out and doing a bunch of stuff around Japan, you know, including putting our advanced anti-missile systems over there. So, pretty crazy. This is another, in my opinion, concern when it comes to the thought that we could have a WW3 and it not be an all-out nuclear event or anything like that. I mean, we could just have a world war without it being apocalyptic, you know. Not saying it wouldn't be bad, but World Economic Order undergoing major reset, says the IMF. I agree. And where that could lead could be ugly. Says the International Monetary Fund has cut its global growth forecast, saying that the global economic system is undergoing a fundamental transformation amid mounting uncertainty over U.S. trade policy. Since returning to office in January, U.S. President Donald Trump has imposed sweeping trade restrictions, culminating in what he calls Liberation Day tariffs introduced on April 2nd. The tariffs have been raised to levels not seen since the Great Depression. That should be a key data point. The IMF said on Tuesday in releasing its latest World Economic Outlook. The report projects that global output would slow to 2.8% this year, down from 3.3% in 2024. As recently as in January, the IMF had forecast growth would hold steady in 2025. The global economic system under which most countries have operated for the last 80 years is being reset, ushering the world into a new era, IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Grunchas, I'm sure I butchered that name all to hell. He explained that the existing rules are being challenged while new ones have yet to take shape. The sudden tariff hikes and broader policy uncertainty could significantly slow global growth, Grunchas said. Grunchas. I'm sure that's probably way off, but it kind of rolls off the tongue, right? Grunchas. The IMF lowered its forecast for U.S. economic output to 1.8% in 2025, down from 2.8% last year, and projected further cooling in 2026. So, top U.S. trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China are all expected to take a hit, it said. China's growth is projected to slow to 4% this year due to attempts to counter the effects of Washington's tariffs. The IMF also expects most EU economies to face slower growth as a result. So, I'm pretty positive that we aren't done with the, I'll say hard times. I think they're going to get harder. I don't know how much harder. Could be just a little bit. I could be wrong. It might not get any worse. It might start getting better. But I think that we're in a rut, and I think it's going to take a bit to get out of this rut. And I think we got a little ways down yet. I don't know how much. Hope not much. But, it's kind of late, my opinion. I'm just speaking my opinion here. It's kind of late, in my opinion, to try to wrangle in China and Russia, which I don't see as a concern so much. But China, man, they're getting pretty big. And when I say that, I mean militarily and technology, and they would definitely put up a fight. You gotta say that. And they sure in the hell have a whole hell of a lot of troops. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, if you can throw 1 million people at something, hell, you can give them pocket knives and... Anyway... Shifting to a little bit of a different part of the world, the EU and the UK aren't done trying to poke Putin. And, man, this is starting to get awfully close to what I've heard described before as an act of war. No less. EU and UK preparing naval blockade of Russia, says Food and Aid. The EU and the UK are gearing up to impose a naval blockade on Russia, Nikolai Patrushev, a senior aide to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, has said. He warned that Moscow has a fleet powerful enough to respond to any such move. In an interview published on Monday by Kommersant, Patrushev who chairs Russia's Maritime Board, a body which oversees national policy in this domain, stated that Moscow is facing escalating threats and challenges at sea amid growing geopolitical tensions. The collective West no longer hides its intentions to expel our shipping from the seas, while sanctions plans mold, for example, by the British and some EU members increasingly resemble a maritime blockade, he said. Patrushev warned that these steps would meet an adequate and a proportionate response from Moscow. If diplomatic or legal instruments do not take effect, the security of Russian shipping will be ensured by our Navy. The hotheads in London or Brussels need to clearly understand this, he said. So again, this is not something that would sit well. I've heard it as an act of war before. Setting up naval blockades. Not fun. I was telling you a little bit ago about this. Man, I'm whipping through these tonight. China condemns U.S.-Philippines full-scale battle drills. China has vehemently condemned joint U.S.-Philippines military drills that kicked off on Monday, accusing Manila of colluding to undermine regional stability and provoke tensions over Taiwan. The 2025 Balikatan exercise, which started on April 21st and runs through May 9th, involves around 14,000 troops from the U.S. and the Philippines, along with contingents from Australia and Japan. Several other countries have sent observers. The drills include live fire training, amphibious landings, aerial surveillance, and a simulated island defense operation near the Luzon Strait close to Taiwan. Fighter jets, warships, and an array of weaponry, including a U.S. Marine anti-ship missile system, will also be involved in the full-scale battle scenario, American and Filipino military officials have said. At a press conference on Monday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun slammed the exercise, stating that while the international community is facing the impact of unilateralism, protectionism, bullying, and hegemony, drills like the Balikatan undermine regional peace. The Philippines, in collusion with countries outside the region, has undermined regional strategic stability, damaged the region's economic growth prospects, and openly stood in opposition to regional countries, the spokesman said. So, we'll see. I mean, it's not like China's not having exercises. They're doing the same thing and simulating blockades around Taiwan, as a matter of fact. So, what are you going to do? And these next two go together. U.S. to propose Crimea recognition as part of Ukraine peace deal, says Washington Post. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to include more than Crimea. Says here, Washington will propose a peace deal recognizing Russian sovereignty over Crimea and freezing the front lines in the Ukraine conflict at a meeting with Ukrainian and European officials this week, the Washington Post has reported, citing sources. The U.S. is expected to hold talks in London on Wednesday, and the Ukrainian and European officials, as U.S. President Donald Trump continues his push for a deal. Trump's envoy, Keith Kellogg, is set to meet foreign ministers and security advisors from France, Germany, the UK, and Ukraine. while Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff will skip the meeting. That's because they're going to Moscow. People familiar with the matter told the outlet on Tuesday the U.S. proposals presented to Ukraine in Paris last week include Washington formally recognizing Crimea as Russian territory and eventually lifting sanctions against Moscow under a future accord. One Western official described the pressure on Ukraine as astounding. European officials are expected to push for security guarantees for Ukraine in a post-war reconstruction efforts, possibly funded in part by frozen Russian assets, the report said. Boring. But then this just kind of flies right in the face of that. Zelensky refuses to recognize Russia's Crimea. Kiev will not discuss recognizing Crimea as Russian territory, Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky told journalists on Tuesday, according to Ukrainian outlet Suspum. The U.S. will propose officially accepting the peninsula as part of the Russian Federation at a meeting with Kiev and its European backers on Wednesday as part of a broader peace deal to stop the conflict, the Washington Post wrote on Tuesday, citing anonymous sources. Crimea is our territory, the territory of the people of Ukraine. We have nothing to talk about on this topic. It is outside our constitution, Zelensky said. Somebody needs to let Zelensky know that war with the world power is outside of their constitution. I guess he's never been told that. The Ukrainian leader claimed that discussing the issue of sovereignty over Crimea could only lead to additional fighting. Okay, get out there, homie. As soon as we start talking about Crimea, about our sovereign territories, we enter the format of prolonging the war, he said, adding that this is what Russia wants. No, Russia wants to end the war too, but you're being a little pisshead, and your advisors suck. Oh, wait. Forgot, that's not my job. But it's true. It's true. They're using that dude. He is such a fool. If he gets Gaddafi'd, all I'm going to do is shake my head. All I'm going to do is shake my head. Because he could get Gaddafi'd. Anyway. Oh, wow, I'm rolling right through this. I've got two more. Netanyahu ordered security service to spy on protesters, says Intel chief. Pretty sure none of us are really surprised by that. I mean, head of Israel Shin Bet, its domestic intelligence agency, has accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of firing him for his refusal to carry out a number of illegal operations, including spying on domestic protesters. Ronen Bar was formally sacked last month, with the official reason cited as lack of trust and the spy chief's alleged failure to prevent the October 2023 Hamas attack. It marked the first time in Israeli history that a domestic security chief was fired by the government. However, the Israeli Supreme Court has issued an injunction freezing the dismissal. In a 31-page affidavit submitted by the Supreme Court on Monday, Barr dismissed the official reason, stating that it does not lie in the professional realm, but in a demand for personal loyalty to Netanyahu. I claim that the Israeli Prime Minister wanted to see the Shin Bet act against citizens involved in protest activity and demonstrations against the government, with a special focus on monitoring protest funders. According to Barr, he was also told to ignore court rulings in the event of a constitutional crisis and to obey the Prime Minister. On top of that, Barr claimed he was pressured to help Netanyahu, who faces corruption charges, avoid testifying in the case. At the same time, the Shin Bet head acknowledged the agency's failings ahead of the Israeli-Hamas war and indicated he would resign before the end of his term. So, yippee skippy. And this last one. I hope it don't kill the product. U.S. government wants Google to sell Chrome. U.S. Department of Justice has stepped up its antitrust proceedings against Google. Focusing on the company's dominance in the Internet search market, the DOJ is advancing for sweeping measures including mandatory divestiture of the Chrome browser, according to media reports. Divestiture. It's a word. I'm looking at it. The trial, which started on Monday, follows years of investigations, public hearings, and courtroom testimony, all of which led to a landmark judicial ruling in August that Google holds an unlawful monopoly in the search market. How dare they? Judge Amit P. Mehta, that's not any better, of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, well, that explains it, is hearing arguments from the government and the company over how to best fix Google's monopoly and is expected to order measures referred to as remedies by the end of summer. On court filings, DOJ has contended that Google must face consequences for its allegedly monopolistic behavior. Amid the proposed remedies, at a court-ordered sale of its widely used Chrome web browser, which plays a critical role in directing users to Google's search engine. This is the time for the court to tell Google and all other monopolists who are out there listening, and they are listening, that there are consequences when you break the antitrust laws. The New York Times quoted DOJ lawyer David Dahlquist as saying. Them's tough words. So, them's tough words. Well, you know what they say. If the glove doesn't fit, you must quit. Oh, wait, that was a totally different time period. Totally different topic. OJ's innocent. I want to make that very clear. OJ was innocent. And I don't own any sports memorabilia, so he shouldn't need to come hunting me down. Poor guy. I mean, that happens to all of us, right? High-speed police chase down an LA freeway in a white Bronco. Happens to all of us. I mean, it is what it is. Man, I kind of do believe that, you know, I said for a good part of my life that I wasn't alive at the right time. I always thought that I'd have been better off being alive. Not way back when, but, you know, born in, I don't know, 50s maybe, 60s. Or not 60s unless it was early 60s. I mean, but I think I lived probably in the best time period. Because I got to see all this technology come on. And it was really cool. Really cool. Starting to get a little scary. But, I mean, just think about everybody's introduced all these smart things into their home. Their damn refrigerator, their washer dryer, their TV, their toaster, right? All these smart devices people put in their home. And now they're getting ready to unleash AI? Oh, that ought to be interesting. That ought to be interesting. I don't get no Maximum Overdrive vibes from that at all. So... Anyway, I'm going to get the hell out of here because that's what I do when I'm done with the news. I'm going to make it an easy Tuesday, and God willing, we'll be back tomorrow night, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more to bring you. They never stop. So anyway, I hope you all have a good night, and as always, shalom.